He thought he was just helping a stranded woman on the road, but the next day, a black SUV appeared outside his house. And that was just the beginning. Lucas Marlowe never believed in fate. He believed in hard work, in the satisfaction of a long day's labor, and in the importance of changing his car's oil every 5,000 miles. That night, he was just another exhausted man heading home after a long shift at the auto shop, thinking only of a hot meal and his bed. The road was nearly empty, the headlights of his truck cutting through the darkness of the quiet highway. Then he saw it, a car pulled over on the side of the road, its hazard lights blinking weakly. At first, he considered driving past. It was late, and the last thing he wanted was trouble. But as he got closer, he saw her, a woman, bundled up in an oversized coat, crouched beside a flat tire, fumbling with a jack that she clearly had no idea how to use. Lucas sighed. Damn it. He slowed his truck and pulled over a few feet ahead of her car. Climbing out, he walked towards her, keeping his hands visible. He knew how this might look, a man approaching a lone woman at night, but he had no bad intentions. Need some help? He asked. The woman startled, whipping her head toward him. Her face was partially hidden by the hood of her coat, but even in the dim light, he could see the fear in her eyes. For a moment, she looked like she might refuse. Then, with a shaky breath, she nodded. Yes, please. She hesitated, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting someone to be watching. I don't know how to do this. Lucas crouched beside the car, inspecting the situation. The jack was positioned wrong, the lug nuts barely loosened. It would have taken her hours, and that was assuming she didn't end up making things worse. Don't worry, I got it. He made quick work of the tire, his hands moving with practiced ease. As he worked, he tried to make small talk. Not a safe place to be stranded this late. You from around here? The woman hesitated before shaking her head. No. Passing through, then. Another pause. Something like that. Lucas frowned but didn't push. Something about the way she spoke, guarded, distant, told him she wasn't interested in conversation. That was fine. He wasn't looking to make friends, just to get her back on the road. A few minutes later, he secured the last lug nut and stood, wiping his hands on his jeans. All set. The woman stood too, still looking uneasy. Thank you. Lucas nodded. No problem. You got a spare to replace this one later? She barely seemed to hear him. Her gaze flickered to the road, then back to him. I should go. Without another word, she turned, hurried to the driver's seat, and pulled the door shut behind her. Lucas watched as she started the engine, her hands trembling on the wheel. Something wasn't right. He could feel it. But before he could say anything, the car peeled away, disappearing down the highway. He stood there for a moment, watching the empty road. A strange unease settled in his stomach. Something about that woman, about her fear, didn't sit right with him. But he had no way of knowing that by stopping to help her, he had just stepped into something far bigger than himself. The next morning, Lucas Marlowe woke up to the familiar sound of birds outside his bedroom window and the distant hum of a neighbor's lawnmower. It was supposed to be just another ordinary day. He stretched, ran a hand over his face, and swung his legs over the side of the bed. As he stood up, he caught a glimpse of something unusual through the blinds. A black SUV. It was parked across the street, just far enough away to seem casual but close enough to be suspicious. The windows were tinted so dark he couldn't see inside. Lucas frowned. He wasn't the kind of guy to jump to conclusions, but something about that vehicle made his skin prickle. It wasn't just that it was out of place, it was the way it sat there, motionless, engine off, like whoever was inside was waiting for something. He moved to the window and watched for a moment. Nothing happened. No one got out. No one moved. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe one of the neighbors had visitors. Lucas pulled on a t-shirt and jeans, trying to shake the feeling of unease creeping into his gut. He headed downstairs, poured himself a cup of coffee, and stepped out onto the porch. The SUV was still there. Something about it nagged at him, an itch in the back of his mind. Then, suddenly, the driver's side window rolled down, slow and deliberate. A man sat behind the wheel. He was dressed in black, his features sharp and unreadable. His eyes locked onto Lucas's with an expression that was neither friendly nor hostile, just calculating. Lucas sipped his coffee, keeping his face neutral. "Something I can help you with?" The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he studied Lucas for a few seconds, as if sizing him up. Then he spoke. "You helped a woman last night. On the highway." Lucas's grip on his coffee mug tightened slightly. "Yeah. She had a flat tire." "What did she say to you?" Lucas frowned. "Not much. She was nervous. Took off as soon as I finished changing the tire." "Why?" The man tilted his head slightly, as if trying to decide whether or not to believe him. Finally, he nodded. "Forget about her." Lucas narrowed his eyes. "Excuse me?" The man's tone didn't change. "Forget you ever saw her. That's the only warning you're getting." Then, just as calmly as he had spoken, the man rolled the window back up. A second later, the engine started, and the SUV pulled away, disappearing down the street like it had never been there. Lucas stood on his porch, heart pounding. This wasn't just a case of a stranded driver anymore. Something was very, very wrong. Lucas Marlowe wasn't the kind of man to let things go easily. He had spent too many years fixing broken machines, taking them apart, and understanding how they worked. And right now, something didn't add up. He sat at his kitchen table, coffee growing cold in his hands, replaying the morning's conversation in his head. Forget about her. That's the only warning you're getting. Who was that man? And more importantly, who was the woman? Lucas had no reason to get involved. He didn't even know her name. But there was something about the way she had looked at him last night, fearful, jumpy, like she expected someone to grab her at any moment. And now, less than 12 hours later, some stranger in a black SUV was telling him to pretend she didn't exist. That didn't sit right with him. By noon, he had made up his mind. He needed answers. Lucas drove back to the stretch of highway where he had helped the woman the night before. The place was empty now, just endless road and dry fields on either side. There were no signs that anything had happened here. No tire marks, no discarded tools, nothing. But Lucas wasn't expecting to find anything here. If someone was after her, they would have covered their tracks. Instead, he turned off onto a nearby side road and headed toward the closest gas station. If she had been passing through, she might have stopped somewhere nearby. And gas stations had security cameras. Maybe someone saw her. The place was quiet when he pulled in. A small convenience store sat next to the pumps, its windows covered with faded advertisements for sodas and lottery tickets. Behind the counter, an older man with a thick beard was flipping through a newspaper. Lucas approached, nodding in greeting. "Afternoon. You working last night?" The man looked up, eyes squinting slightly. "Yeah. Why?" Lucas glanced around, lowering his voice. "I'm looking for a woman who might have stopped here late. Maybe an hour before midnight." Dark hair, wearing a big coat, looked nervous. The cashier's expression shifted. "Yeah, I remember her." He put the newspaper down, leaning on the counter. "Came in real quiet, didn't look at nobody. Bought a bottle of water, kept glancing over her shoulder. I asked if she was okay, but she just paid and left." Lucas felt his stomach tighten. "Did you see what direction she went?" The cashier nodded. "North." Looked like she was in a hurry. Lucas exhaled slowly. Any cameras outside? The man snorted. You see this place? We barely got working lights. Figures. Lucas thanked him and headed back to his truck. He sat behind the wheel, staring out at the open road. She had been here. She was running. And whoever was chasing her was still close. Lucas wasn't sure what he was getting himself into. But one thing was clear, he couldn't just let this go. Lucas drove back home, but his mind was far from settled. The woman was running from something, or someone, and he had unknowingly stepped into her path. He could have ignored it, gone back to his usual life, but the way that man in the SUV had spoken to him, the veiled threat in his voice, made one thing clear: this wasn't just a case of a woman with a flat tire. Someone wanted her gone. Someone powerful enough to watch, to warn, to make sure there were no loose ends. And now, he was one of them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Lucas sat in his living room, flipping a wrench in his hand absent-mindedly. He had locked his doors, drawn the curtains, things he normally wouldn't bother with. But there was an unsettling weight in his chest, a feeling he couldn't shake. Then he heard it. A faint rustling outside. Footsteps. He froze, gripping the wrench tighter. His heart thumped against his ribs. Carefully, he stood and moved toward the window, keeping to the shadows. He peeked through the blinds. A figure stood near his fence, barely visible in the dim light. His stomach clenched. It was her. Lucas moved quickly, unlocking the door and stepping outside, keeping his voice low. What the hell are you doing here? The woman flinched at his tone but didn't back away. She looked worse than before, her coat was dirt-streaked, her hair messy, her eyes wide with fear. I didn't know where else to go. Her voice was barely above a whisper. They found me. Lucas cursed under his breath and scanned the street. No SUV. No movement. But that didn't mean they weren't close. Get inside. She hesitated. Now. She rushed past him into the house, and he locked the door behind her. Lucas turned to face her, crossing his arms. Start talking. She swallowed hard, glancing toward the window like she expected someone to break through at any moment. My name is Marissa. Okay, Marissa. Who the hell is after you? She shook her head. I can't tell you that. Lucas let out a sharp laugh, more frustration than amusement. Lady, you showed up at my house in the middle of the night, scared out of your mind. A guy in a black SUV told me to forget about you, which, by the way, is not exactly reassuring. And now you're standing here, telling me nothing. Marissa clenched her jaw, hugging herself as if trying to make herself smaller. The less you know, the safer you are. Does it look like I'm safe? Lucas snapped. They already know who I am. They came to my house. Her face paled. I didn't mean to drag you into this. Yeah, well, here we are. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. Look, I don't need your whole life story. Just tell me, are these people cops? Criminals? What are we dealing with? Marissa hesitated, then lowered her voice. They're people who don't exist on paper. People who can make you disappear without a trace. Lucas's stomach tightened. Government? She didn't answer. But the look in her eyes told him enough. Jesus Christ. Lucas ran a hand over his face. He wasn't ready for this. He was just a damn mechanic, not some hero out of a movie. He should tell her to leave, to go to the police, except something told him that wasn't an option. A sudden noise outside made them both freeze. The unmistakable sound of tires crunching on gravel. Lucas's eyes snapped to the window. A dark vehicle had stopped at the end of his driveway. They had found her. And now, they had found him, too. Lucas moved fast. He grabbed Marissa by the wrist and pulled her away from the window, lowering his voice to a harsh whisper. "Stay down. Don't move." Marissa didn't argue. She crouched beside the couch, eyes wide with fear, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Lucas peered through the blinds. The black SUV had stopped at the edge of his driveway, its headlights off. The engine was still running, a low, steady hum in the silence of the night. Then, the driver's side door opened. A man stepped out, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in dark clothing. Another followed, moving with the kind of controlled precision that screamed military or something worse. Lucas's grip on the blinds tightened. His heart pounded against his ribs. They weren't here to talk. He backed away from the window and turned to Marissa. "You need to tell me right now, are these guys planning to take you, or are they here to kill you?" Marissa swallowed hard. "Both." Lucas cursed under his breath. They were already moving. The men split up, one heading toward the front door, the other circling toward the back. Lucas had to think fast. He grabbed his shotgun from the cabinet near the stairs. He hadn't used it in a while, but right now, it was the only thing standing between them and whatever was about to come through that door. Bang! 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 A heavy knock rattled the door. "Mr. Marlowe." The voice was calm, almost polite. "We know she's inside. Open the door, and this doesn't have to get messy." Lucas stayed silent. His mind raced. He could fight, but there were at least two of them, maybe more. He had the shotgun, sure, but once he fired a shot, things would escalate fast. And then there was Marissa. She was scared, but not the kind of scared that came from paranoia. No, this was the fear of someone who had seen what these men were capable of. Another knock, this time harder. Last chance. Lucas exhaled slowly. Then he did the only thing he could think of. He grabbed Marissa's hand and ran. They moved fast, slipping through the side door into the garage just as the front door burst open behind them. Heavy boots stormed inside, but Lucas didn't stop. He shoved Marissa toward his truck. "Get in. Now." She didn't hesitate. Lucas jumped into the driver's seat, shoved the key into the ignition, and turned it. The engine roared to life. Behind them, the men were already moving, shouts, footsteps pounding toward them. One of them raised a gun. Lucas slammed his foot on the gas. The truck lurched forward, tires screeching against the pavement. A gunshot cracked through the night, a bullet punching through the side mirror, but missing them by inches. Lucas swerved onto the road, gripping the wheel tight. Marissa clutched the dashboard, her breath coming in quick, panicked gasps. "They won't stop. You know that, right?" Lucas's jaw tightened. His knuckles turned white against the steering wheel. "Then we don't stop either." They sped into the night, the black SUV already pulling onto the road behind them. The chase had begun. Lucas gripped the wheel, his heart hammering in his chest as he pushed the truck faster down the darkened highway. The black SUV was right behind them, its headlights glaring in the rearview mirror. Marissa clutched the seatbelt across her chest, breathing hard. "They won't let us go. They don't make mistakes, Lucas." Lucas kept his eyes on the road, jaw clenched. "Then we'll have to make them." The SUV was gaining. The men inside weren't just following, they were hunting. Lucas could almost feel their focus, their patience. These weren't reckless thugs. They were trained, disciplined. They wouldn't just ram him off the road. No, they were waiting for the right moment to strike. Lucas wasn't about to give them one. Up ahead, a road sign flashed in the headlights, Henson Bridge, 1 mile. Lucas made a split-second decision. "Hold on," he warned. Marissa barely had time to react before Lucas jerked the wheel and took a hard right, veering onto a narrow dirt road. Gravel flew up behind them, the truck skidding before the tires caught traction. The SUV followed, its headlights bouncing wildly as it tore after them. Lucas's hands were steady on the wheel, but his mind was racing. He knew these back roads better than anyone, miles of winding dirt paths, old logging trails, and narrow bridges. If he could just get enough distance, he might be able to lose them. Marissa turned in her seat, her face pale. "They're still coming." Lucas didn't answer. He didn't need to. Ahead, the road split, one path leading toward the old, rickety wooden bridge over the river, the other winding through dense forest. Lucas took the bridge. The old wooden planks creaked under the weight of the truck as they sped across. Lucas knew it was a risk, too much weight, and the whole thing could collapse. But that was exactly what he was counting on. As soon as they reached the other side, Lucas slammed the brakes. Marissa gasped as the truck skidded to a stop. "What are you doing?" Lucas threw the truck into reverse and aimed for a small dirt path running parallel to the bridge. It was barely visible in the darkness, but he knew it was there, a service road he'd taken plenty of times before. The SUV was halfway across the bridge now, barreling toward them. Lucas didn't wait. He gunned the engine and rammed into the wooden support beams at the edge of the bridge. There was a horrible crack. The old wood, weak from years of rot and neglect, gave way. Lucas barely had time to reverse out of the way as the bridge collapsed. The SUV's front tires hit the splintering wood, then, suddenly, the entire vehicle tilted forward. Marissa let out a strangled gasp as the SUV plunged into the river below. Lucas didn't wait to see if the men inside had survived. He hit the gas and disappeared into the woods. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The only sounds were the hum of the truck's engine and the wind rushing past. Marissa finally exhaled, slumping back against the seat. That was insane. Lucas let out a dry, humorless laugh. "Yeah. But it worked." She turned to him, her expression serious. "They're not dead, Lucas. And even if they were, there'll be more." Lucas tightened his grip on the wheel. "I know. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot." The road stretched dark and empty ahead of them, swallowed by the dense forest on either side. The only sound was the steady hum of the engine and Marissa's uneven breathing. Lucas kept his hands tight on the wheel, his mind still racing. They had bought themselves some time, but she was right, this wasn't over. The men in that SUV were professionals. If they had backup, more would come. And when they did, they wouldn't make the same mistake twice. He needed a plan. "Where are we going?" Marissa finally asked, her voice hoarse. Lucas didn't take his eyes off the road. "Somewhere safe." She let out a bitter laugh. "There's no such thing." Lucas glanced at her. The way she sat, shoulders hunched, hands gripping the sleeves of her coat, told him more than she probably realized. She was exhausted, running on pure adrenaline. He could see it in the dark circles under her eyes, the way she barely blinked. She had been running for a long time. "I know a place," he said finally. "It's not much, but no one will find us there." Marissa studied him for a long moment, then gave a small nod. Lucas turned off onto an old service road, barely visible between the trees. It was one of those places people forgot existed, a backwoods hunting cabin he'd inherited from his uncle years ago but rarely used. No electricity, no phone lines. Off the grid. Perfect for laying low. By the time they arrived, the air had turned bitterly cold, and the forest around them was eerily silent. The cabin was nothing more than a small wooden structure tucked between thick trees, half hidden from the road. Lucas parked the truck and killed the engine. "Come on." Marissa hesitated. She looked at the cabin like it might swallow her whole. "No one knows about this place," Lucas assured her. "You'll be safe here." That seemed to convince her. She followed him inside, and Lucas quickly lit an old oil lamp, casting flickering shadows along the wooden walls. The place smelled of dust and pine, but it was dry, and right now, that was all that mattered. Marissa sank onto the couch, exhaling shakily. For the first time since she had shown up at his house, she let her guard drop, just a little. Lucas pulled off his jacket and tossed it over a chair. "You gonna tell me the truth now?" he asked. Marissa rubbed her face, then looked up at him, her eyes tired but sharp. "I worked for them." Lucas felt his stomach tighten. "The men chasing you?" She nodded. "I wasn't supposed to know what I knew. They had me doing data analysis, combing through reports. But I found something. Something I wasn't supposed to see." Lucas crossed his arms. "Which was?" Marissa hesitated. "They're running an operation, off the books, completely illegal. Black site prisons, foreign contracts, people disappearing without a trace. And I don't mean criminals. I mean journalists, activists, whistleblowers. People who knew too much." Lucas let out a slow breath. "Jesus. I was never meant to find out. But I did. And as soon as I did, they put me on a kill list." She let out a bitter laugh. "That's what they do. They erase people. Make it look like an accident, a suicide, or just, make them disappear completely." Lucas ran a hand through his hair. He wasn't sure what he had been expecting, but not this. He looked at her, sitting there in his uncle's old cabin, half-starved, terrified, running for her life. And now, because of one moment of kindness, he was in the middle of it, too. "So why come to me?" he asked finally. Marissa's lips pressed together. "Because you're the only one who helped me. Everyone else I reached out to is either missing or dead." A heavy silence filled the room. Lucas exhaled sharply. "Great. Just great." Marissa looked at him, something desperate in her expression. "If you want to leave me here, I get it. But if you help me, I can expose them. I have proof." Lucas stared at her for a long moment. Then he looked out the window, toward the darkness beyond the trees. Somewhere out there, more of them were coming. And now, there was no turning back. Lucas didn't sleep that night. Marissa had passed out on the couch, exhaustion finally catching up with her. She looked small, fragile, curled up beneath the old blanket he had tossed over her. But he knew better. She wasn't weak, she was a survivor. And now, so was he. He sat in the chair by the window, shotgun across his lap, staring into the woods. He knew they would come. It was only a matter of when. At dawn, Marissa stirred. She blinked blearily, looking around like she had forgotten where she was. Then her eyes landed on Lucas. "You didn't sleep." Lucas smirked. "Didn't have time." She sat up, rubbing her face. "We can't stay here." Lucas nodded. He had been thinking the same thing. The cabin was safe, for now. But it wouldn't take long for them to track down his truck. They had resources, satellites, surveillance that could pick up on heat signatures, phone signals, anything. "We need to move." "Fast," Lucas said. "You said you have proof. Where is it?" Marissa hesitated. Then she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small, battered USB drive. "Everything's on here. Names, locations, transactions. I copied it from their encrypted servers before I ran." Lucas took it, turning it over in his fingers. It was so small, so unassuming. Yet it held something dangerous enough to get people killed. "So we get this to the FBI?" he asked. Marissa let out a short, bitter laugh. "You really think they don't have people on the inside? The moment we walk into a federal office, we're dead." Lucas sighed. "Then who?" Marissa hesitated. There's a journalist. Owen Drake. He runs an independent investigation unit. He's taken down government conspiracies before, real ones, not just rumors. If we get this to him, he'll go public. Lucas thought for a moment. He had heard of Owen Drake, a relentless journalist who had exposed corruption at the highest levels. If anyone could put this out in the open, it was him. Where is he? New York. Lucas swore under his breath. That's a long drive. You got a better idea? He didn't. They left within the hour. Lucas abandoned his truck, it was too easy to track, and hotwired an old sedan from a nearby hunting lodge. It wasn't pretty, but it was unregistered and off the radar. They kept to back roads, stopping only for gas, never staying in one place too long. Hours passed. Then a full day. Lucas barely spoke, keeping his focus on the road. Marissa sat beside him, staring out the window, lost in thought. Do you think we'll make it? She asked quietly. Lucas didn't take his eyes off the highway. I don't believe in luck. But I believe in doing the right thing. She gave him a tired smile. That's rare. Another hour passed. Then, a black SUV appeared in the rearview mirror. Lucas's grip tightened on the wheel. Damn it. Marissa turned, eyes widening. It's them. Lucas didn't waste time. He floored the gas pedal, the engine roaring as the car shot forward. The SUV kept pace, creeping closer. Then the gunshot started. The back windshield exploded as bullets tore through the glass. Marissa screamed, ducking down. Lucas swerved hard, trying to shake them, but the SUV was relentless. Up ahead, an overpass loomed. Lucas made a split-second decision. Hold on, he yelled. He yanked the wheel hard left, sending the car into a sharp skid. The SUV tried to follow, too fast. Its tires clipped the edge of the median. The driver overcorrected. And then, the SUV flipped. It rolled once. Twice. Then slammed into a guardrail, smoke pouring from the hood. Lucas didn't slow down. By the time they reached New York, they were both exhausted, running on fumes and adrenaline. Owen Drake's office was in a nondescript brick building downtown. Lucas parked 3 blocks away, scanning the area. We go in, drop the evidence, and get out, he said. Marissa nodded. They entered through the back alley, slipping into the building unseen. Owen Drake was in his office, a man in his 40s with sharp eyes and a cigarette dangling from his lips. He looked up as they entered, frowning. You better have something good. Marissa stepped forward, pulling out the USB drive. This will change everything. Owen took it, plugged it into his laptop, and scanned the files. His expression darkened. Jesus Christ, he looked up at them. This is real. They killed for it, Marissa said. They'll keep killing. Owen nodded slowly. Not if I put this out first. 2 days later, the world knew the truth. The files were leaked. Names were exposed. The organization that had hunted Marissa was in free fall. Some were arrested. Some vanished. The ones who survived knew better than to come after her again. Lucas and Marissa sat in a diner, watching the news on a grainy television screen. She exhaled, shoulders finally relaxing. It's over. Lucas stirred his coffee. For now. She looked at him. So, what now? Lucas smirked. I was thinking about getting some sleep. She laughed, a real, genuine laugh. For the first time in a long time, she was free. And so was he. This story is about more than just a chance encounter on a dark road, it's about the choices we make when faced with danger, the lines we're willing to cross for what's right, and the weight of carrying someone else's burden. Lucas Marlowe wasn't a hero. He was an ordinary man, caught in extraordinary circumstances. He had every reason to walk away, to forget the woman he helped that night. But he didn't. And that choice changed everything. Marissa's story is one of survival, not just from those hunting her, but from the fear that had controlled her for so long. She fought to be heard, to expose the truth, and in doing so, she reclaimed her life. Their journey was dangerous, filled with impossible odds, but it serves as a reminder: sometimes, doing the right thing means risking everything. And sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can alter the course of fate. The world may never know Lucas's name. He won't get medals, recognition, or headlines. But in the end, he did what mattered. He fought for the truth. And he won.